I don't think the BJP, in a fair election, they were nowhere near 240 seats. No way. I mean, I'd be surprised if they had a financial, huge financial advantage. They had locked our bank accounts for one, but huge war chest. The election commission was doing what they wanted. I mean, the entire campaign was structured so Mr. Modi could do his thing across the country. States where they were weak were designed differently than states where they were strong. So I don't view it as a free election at all. I view it as a rather controlled election.
What's your confidence? Well, clearly your goal now is to win the next election. And it struck me there's one of two ways, maybe both, that this could come about. One is that Modi is he's no longer godlike, as you say. He's sort of dented. He's down. He's not out, but he's down. Psychologically quite harmed, expecting this affirmation of his being above ordinary political mortals and not getting it. And that might lead to splits, infighting within the BJP. He's got no obvious successor, right?
My analysis is different.
Okay.
My sense halfway through the campaign was that Modi didn't think he was getting anywhere near 300, 400 seats. And I think early on he realized that this thing's going wrong, right? And we were getting inputs from the regular sources, some of the intelligence agencies we were getting some of that information. It was pretty clear that they were in trouble. And so there was this internal thing going on in the Prime Minister that I could see. And psychologically, that how is this now happening? Because he's a person, as you know, he was in Gujarat many years, never faced political adversity, then Prime Minister of India, and suddenly this idea started to crack. And we knew when he said that, I speak directly to God, we knew that there had been that we had actually blown him apart, right? And that the psychology had gone. And so people think that, well, this was the Prime Minister saying that, look, I'm special, I'm unique, and I talk to God. But that's not how we saw it. Internally, we saw it as a psychological collapse, that what's happened here? How is this thing not working? And it's not just the Prime Minister, it's deeper than that. So what has happened in India, and you'll see it, is that the coalition that brought Mr. Modi to power has collapsed. It's broken right down the middle. So you'll see in these elections that they will struggle. They will struggle, yeah. Because the basic idea that Mr. Modi is running a government for the people of India is gone. Now the idea has been replaced. 2-3 ideas have replaced it. Number one, that there is a huge nexus between the government and 2 or 3 really large businesses. 2, that the lower castes, particularly the OBCs and the Dalits, have been taken for a ride. And this is very strong right across the board. And I mean, we poll it, we can see it.
You promised during the campaign a caste census so that you could then update the share of public sector jobs. Well, you could expand the share of public sector jobs reserved for lower castes.
See, there's the elephant in the room is when we talk about capture of institutions, when we talk about businesses, when we talk about the media, the elephant in the room is that 90% of India, OBCs, Dalits, Adivasis, they don't play the game. They're not even in the game. And that's really the elephant in the room. So the caste census is a simple exercise. And actually, it's more than the caste census. Caste census is one of 3 ideas. It's a simple exercise to say, okay, we got independence 1947. We've been going for a while now. Let's see how have the lower castes, backward castes, Dalits, how have they integrated into this system? What is it actually that they're participating in? And frankly, we've got the data. We've done our homework, we've got the data. And I can tell you, out of the top 200 businesses in India, there's almost no ownership of 90% of the population. I can tell you that in the highest courts of the country, there's almost no participation of 90% of India. I can tell you that in the media, national media, anchors, journalists, there is 0 participation of lower caste, OBCs, Dalits, Adivasi. And the people know this. It's not that this is not known. The large mass of people understand this, and they look at India and they say, okay, where is our participation? And the idea of the caste census is simple. We've not taken any policy position. We're just saying, look, we want to understand. We want a snapshot to understand where we at. What is the participation level of lower caste, Dalits, OBCs, poor general castes? And that's really the caste census. Now, there are 2 other components, which we have also said, but have not really been put out that much. One is the idea of a socio-economic survey. So we want to not only understand how many Dalits there are, how many OBCs there are, but we want to understand what their social position looks like, what their financial position looks like, what their economic position looks like. And the third component, which I think is very important, is we also want to understand we want to take a look at India's institutions. We want to look at the media. We want to look at healthcare. We want to look at education. The owners, the structures that deliver these services. And we want to get a sense of what is India's participation in these institutions. So these are an institutional survey, a socio-economic survey.
Is there any reason why you wouldn't expand that to include the role of Muslims in modern?
They're included in that. It's
So
not
they're
just
included
Muslims.
in the OBC.
It's minorities.
Category,
No, it's
minorities,
everybody.
Muslims.
It's
Okay.
even if you look at the general caste, you will find that there is a huge divide between poor general castes and well-off general castes. And that's the same for minorities, it's the same for Adivasis, it's the same for OBCs, it's the same for Dalits.
The reason I pressed you on that is because older people in this audience, and maybe some of the younger ones, will remember in 1992 when VP Singh's government announced its expanding government reservation system to other backward classes, not just Dalits. That's when L.K. Advani, the BJP leader, launched his Rath Yatra on Ayodhya, which resulted in the vandalism, the destruction of the Babri Masjid. So there is this sort of chemical interaction between caste and Hindutva reacting against it, mostly upper caste-led Hindutva. So you confident of the politics of this? I mean, because this has a history, right?
Look, from our perspective, if we talk about a nation that is going to progress, and if we talk about India becoming a modern nation, we have to ask the question about participation of 90% of our population. We can't just ignore it. There's just no way we can ignore it. Because frankly, if we go down this path, it's not sustainable. Right? So it's not a question of caste or religion or Hindutva or anything else. It's a question of fairness. I frankly, as a politician, I don't want to live in a country where 90% of the people do not have access to opportunity. I'm not interested. So that's my position. Of course, many people would disagree with it. Many people would say, and the BJP and the RSS do say, that look, don't ask this question. Let a small minority of people just take all the fruits of the country. Now that's the fight, right? I mean, Mr. Adani and Mr. Ambani are a small component of that. They are a huge component in the business world, but they're a small component if you look at the entire picture.
I want to keep an eye on the time because I want to leave at least 20 minutes for questions. So we've got a couple more from me, if I may. Let me play...
Can I just say one more thing? I'm of the view, and I think most people who are involved in this will agree with me, that this is now an unstoppable idea. So if somebody thinks that now they are going to stop 90% of India from asking these questions, from demanding a census, from asking the question about how much participation do they have in our institutional structure, I don't think it's going to work. I think that the pressure is way too powerful.
But assuming, and I'm sure you're right, that this survey does produce the kind of picture in detail that you've just outlined, what would be the policy implications? Would it be larger reservations?
That would depend on what comes out of these studies, right? If you ask me personally, I think seriously increasing the amount of money the government of India spends on education, seriously increasing the amount of money the government of India spends on healthcare, providing a basic minimum to our people. Look, I'll tell you something just blew my mind. There's the NEET exam in India. Have you heard of the NEET exam? Okay. So I started studying the thing, and I got some people to start looking into it in detail. And it's mind-blowing what's going on, right? Do you know the pass mark of the NEET? 22%. Okay, so now this is how it works. If you get 95, 97%, you can go into any medical college you want. If you don't get 95, if you're not right up there and you get 95, 90, 85, 80, and you don't have money, you're not getting into medical college. And if you get 20% to 40% to 50% and you got money going straight in, that's not an education system I want. That's not an education system I think India should have. Right? So I don't think there should be an education system that is determined simply by whether you can pay 2 crores, 3 crores, 4 crores to get in. I think that's destructive to India. It's the same with the healthcare system.